Always been interested in homesteading but have no idea how to get started? Today's video is just for you. I'm Lorella. This is Plan B Orchard and Farm, and I've been homesteading on weekends before and after work during the week for nearly a decade. After sharing one of my recent videos on Facebook, one of my friends commented, "I've always wanted to homestead. I'm so interested in the lifestyle, but I don't even know where to start." And while I answered her there, it got me thinking that probably you might have that same question. So let's talk about it. What do you do? How do you even get started? My husband and I still work off farm, which means we are doing all of our homesteading after hours. And if you're just getting started, I imagine that's what you're doing too. One piece of advice that I want to share with you is something that my husband made as a decision for us that in the beginning I really resented, but later I decided was super valuable. And that was we were only going to take on one new animal or one new major project at a time, like per year. And the reason for that is I see, and you've seen these videos of these people who, I sold everything, look at everything I've done in a year, and they're doing it all. The difference being most of those people had gotten themselves out of debt, sold a property, and were able to move debt-free and had another source of income. Don't take on too much at one time or you'll do nothing well. Learn to excel at one thing and then move on to the next thing. And that really has been a lifesaver for us. So the first thing that I think any homesteader needs to do is to learn how to grow food and grow food that you actually eat. So many times if I say something like that to someone, I hear, "Oh, I've got a black thumb. I kill everything I've ever tried to grow. I can't. Gardening is not for me." Well, I want to say, I don't believe you. I don't believe you. I'm calling it, because I think gardening is a skill, and it's a skill that anyone can learn. I had really tough time learning to garden in the beginning, and now I grow a 75-foot by 25-foot garden with lots and lots of produce every year. If I can learn how to do it, anybody can. Start small. Pick one or two things that your family likes to eat and grow those. Oftentimes, if I want to grow something, I'll just be like, how to grow carrots, how to grow carrots in containers, how to grow carrots in Missouri, how to grow carrots in the winter, whatever it is. There's someone out there has made a video on it. So just check your resources and do one thing at a time. I'm going to talk about this from probably two different angles. One is if you're a homeowner, and the other one is if you're a renter. If you're a homeowner, or if you already have property in the country, my answer is going to be a little different. You are going to start gardening, but start first with perennial fruits and herbs and trees, fruit trees and nut trees. Fruit trees take a good 3 to 5 years to really become productive, and I wish I had started with fruit trees first. That's one of the lessons that I've learned, because I've been in this property 10 years and our fruit trees are not producing yet. They're only about 3 years old. I got my first apple last year. So this year I'm really looking forward to a bigger harvest of fruit. Really figure out where you want to have berry bushes, fruit trees, nut trees, things like that on your property. If you're in a rental property, you can grow in containers, and when you are able then to move to your own place, you can take those with you. In addition to learning how to grow your own food, it's important that you learn how to preserve that food. In some places, like Southern California or the tropics, you can grow things year-round. And where I live in Southern Missouri, we get a hard frost and we have a definite winter that's about 5 months long, where many, many things won't grow. There's a few things that we can grow over winter, but not a lot. And so it's important that we learn how to preserve food so that we can continue eating from our own harvest all winter long. There are things that can just be stored in a cool area, like potatoes and winter squashes. And then there's things that need some other kind of preservation, and you can dehydrate, you can learn how to can, and a lot of our food is just chopped up and stored in bags through the freezer. That way you are able to enjoy the harvest year-round. The second thing that I would suggest doing is that you start with a small animal, either rabbits for meat or chickens for either eggs or meat or both. And really take the time to learn how to care for livestock that way, because they're small animals and they're inexpensive. And unfortunately, when you're learning how to farm and how to raise livestock, there are disease, there's deaths that are unexplainable, there's injuries, there's parasites, and it's really a good idea to face those challenges and learn how to deal with them on a small animal that you didn't sink $300 or $800 into before you decide to go out and get a dairy cow or any other animal. In many, many cities, you're allowed to have, usually the number's like 3 to 5 hens to provide eggs for yourself. And if you're worried about what your neighbors are gonna think, if it's gonna be noisy, if it's gonna be smelly, well, one thing is, if you take care of your animals right, they're not gonna have smell. You're not gonna have a stinky yard. So I wouldn't even worry about that. Just do research on how to care for them properly, and don't get too many. If you have a small backyard, 3 hens is enough to provide eggs for your family. And free eggs to the neighbors goes a long way towards them complaining against the sound of your chickens. Chickens aren't terribly loud. You don't want a rooster for sure. You definitely want hens. And something that I didn't realize before I started raising chickens is that hens produce eggs regardless of whether there's a rooster there or not. So you really don't need a rooster to have eggs for your family. Meat rabbits are a great choice, especially for renters or people who live urban, because most cities consider rabbits as pets, not as livestock. And you can raise with 1 buck and 1 doe, or 1 buck and 2 does, enough meat to feed your family year round. Now, you are going to have to do processing of your own rabbits, and so that needs to be something that you're ready for before you take that step. But I know people who live in the city and they have just like a shady spot in their yard, or they have a garage where they put down a tarp and they do their own processing of their rabbits and they feed themselves that way. Rabbits are an easily renewable meat source. They breed like rabbits, and you can have a turnaround time of about probably 4 weeks gestation plus 6 weeks of till weaning. So that's 10 weeks. And then the rabbits need another 6 weeks to be ready to harvest. So 16 weeks from your first breeding to meat in your freezer. That's not long at all. That's not long at all. That's 4 months. So now you've become a gardener. You've grown food that your family eats. Maybe even you've set up a little produce stand in your yard and you're selling your extra veg, or you're giving it away to people you know who need it. You've got chickens or rabbits and you're providing some protein to your family. You've got some established fruit trees, or you have dwarf fruit trees in containers that can move with you someday when you move to your own land. Then you're close to getting ready to have your own homestead. So you move out to the country. When that happens, then you're ready to add on pigs, sheep, goats, ducks, turkeys. I mean, really any livestock animal that you want to raise. So I suggest that you start with a garden, then smaller animals, and then move on to larger animals in that order. I really hope this video has been helpful. Let me know what questions you have about getting started, and I will try my best to help you out.